Hey everybody, it's Peter and welcome to my home office. If you're watching this right now, you should probably have watched, or maybe you want to watch that, maybe you don't, my vehicle review of my 2022 Tesla Model Y that I just bought used. And the reason this is kind of a deal, a big deal maybe, is not because I sold my Wrangler 4xe for it, but probably because I used to be the guy who talked about the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. I used to be considered an expert on that. I used to run a big channel that talked a lot about Kias and Hyundais. So why did I buy the Model Y? Well, I talked in the part one of this video just about the car. And basically what I concluded is there are pieces I like about that car, certainly cargo space, general ride comfort, some of the technology I actually like, but I wouldn't say it's better than the EV6 or the Ioniq 5 overall. You know, you could make the case that it is. You could also make the case that the Kia EV6 is the best, and you could make the case that the Ioniq 5 is the best, and maybe other EVs as well. So the reason that I bought the Model Y is partly the vehicle. I think it's among the class leaders, but the real reason, and the real reason that I'm never going to probably be asked to do Kia Canada training videos ever again, is because of what I'm about to tell you. It's not because I bought a Model Y. I think there are still issues with charge stations and dealer networks when it comes to regular EVs. And I think this can be something that is really an issue. First of all, I have 6 apps on my phone just for the local charge stations around my immediate area. Each one of those needs me to sign up, give an account. Some of them need cash on the app for it to work. Some of them are more confusing than others. And at the end of the day, I've owned an EV since 2019. I have the Kia Soul EV. And again, I also drove a PHEV, the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 4xe. So I drove that around for a while. So I've had EVs in my own personal life for a while. And generally speaking, I would just charge at home with those cars. The Kia Soul EV that I have is a short range car. We would use our secondary vehicle for road trips. The Tesla that I have is now a road trip vehicle. Having 6 different apps that require 6 different things on a road trip, and that's just close to my house, can be a problem. There are reliability issues with charge networks that aren't tied to a manufacturer. And when your car shows up at those charge networks, you don't know if they're working or not. Tesla's supercharging system is still by far the best. When I show up there with a Tesla, I get out of my door, I grab the piece off of the charger, I throw it into my car, and it takes less time to do it than what I just explained. And it's charging. No apps, no nothing, it knows it. In fact, you touch the button on the charger and the charge door on the car opens up. They work together and they work quickly. Even in the slower charging superchargers, you still get exceptional charge rates and very good reliability, and it's not likely to send you to a supercharger that isn't working because the car's navigation talks to its own proprietary superchargers. Now, if you're buying Fords and Rivians and other vehicles, they will have access to the Tesla supercharging network in 2024, which at this point when I'm filming the video is next year. I think that is going to be bad for Tesla owners because there will be more cars at their Tesla chargers. I think it will be good for other EVs. The other benefit with the superchargers is, for instance, the local supercharger, there's like 8 supercharging stalls and 1 CCS stall for the other types of vehicles. I regularly go to these superchargers and see 3 or 4 Tesla vehicles in those 8 stalls when I see them there, even before I owned the Tesla. So when you have the other charge networks, you might go to that charger and find out that there's only 1 charger there. And as vehicles become more and more popular, electric vehicles become more and more popular, that network is just not there right now. So in 2023, that can still be an issue. Now, if you go on major metropolitan areas, major cities, that kind of thing, you generally have a charge network for every kind of vehicle you have. But if you travel in more rural areas like where I live in New Brunswick, there's not a lot of charge networks. And I'm going to do a vacation in Nova Scotia soon. There's no supercharger network out there, so I will have to use the other chargers. But Tesla can use their supercharger network and can use other chargers. So charge network is important. Now, It's not that important, because if you're like me, everybody that I know buys a vehicle for the 2 or 10% rather than the 90%. And what I mean by that is some of us buy pickup trucks because we have to tow a trailer 2 weeks of the year. Some of us buy, station wagons because we want to load that dresser in that 2 times a year that we do that. Oftentimes we buy a 4x4 vehicle for just the winter months, and it's 2 or 3 snowstorms a year that we have to have that ground clearance, for instance. All of those things are factors. If you are buying a vehicle that you don't tend to do a ton of road trips on, a quick little planning and some extra patience on those road trips, and you can buy any EV you want, it should be fine. If you regularly want to pick up the phone and go, yep, I can be there, it's 4 hours away, and you want to just get there, Tesla's going to have an advantage at this point over other EVs. So that's the first thing. Charge networks matter. Let's talk about the second thing, and this one is gonna hurt some people. I drive a Kia Soul EV. I used to drive Jeep Wrangler 4xe. If you have a great dealer with knowledgeable people, you're probably going to have a good ownership experience. My issue, not just with Kia Canada, with a lot of people, a lot of dealer networks, is whatever training they're offering is not up to snuff. It doesn't work because it's not making its way down to the dealers, it's not making its way down to the employees. I have dealt with my Jeep Wrangler, completely clueless employees, where I've been on the Jeep Wrangler 4xe Facebook group and had all the information I need because a number of other people have dealt with completely poorly trained dealers, and we've had to find out our own information as customers and become experts in our own vehicles in order to get the car serviced correctly. I've recently experienced the same thing with my Kia. I had an issue come up with my car. Again, I used to be an expert on these cars. I understand what the issue is, but I had trouble getting the dealer to do things properly. They were completely untrained on the car, seemingly unwilling to work on the car, and certainly, overly pushing, nope, that will be fine. The car was not fine, the car needed some work, and it still needs work, and it's waiting for parts from Kia Canada, and that's what it is. The problem I have is something like a turtle light came on my Kia EV. It's a very common EV light. It can mean a number of things. My dealer hadn't heard of the turtle light. It was quite clear that they didn't diagnose it properly or diagnose it at all. They didn't look into it. They don't know what it meant. All of these things. Now again, if my wife had taken that vehicle in for service, she would have been told, nope, it's fine, off you go. The problem was my wife didn't take it in, I took it in, and I am a relative expert on these vehicles. I used to do training videos for Kia. They used to trust me to talk about their cars. The reason they won't trust me to talk about their cars, or at least I assume they won't anymore, is because I have firmly criticized their training companies. If you buy an EV through a dealer and you have a great dealer that's willing to, on their own, take on not just the training materials, but learn the things that need to be learned outside of those training materials being provided, you're going to have a great ownership experience. If not, then you won't have a great dealership experience. And that's where Tesla sits in the middle. If you have a bad dealer, it's better to just cut that dealer out and work with something like Tesla, where it goes directly to the manufacturer. If my car throws an engine light or a warning light or whatever, all of that software goes to Tesla. They know about it. I had to call Kia Canada's helpline to make sure that Kia had documents and records of what was going on with my car because the dealer didn't do what they needed to do. It's a problem. It's not just Kia, it's not just Jeep, it's not just Ford. All of these companies that are dealing with EVs, if you have a great dealer, you're in great shape. If you don't have a great dealer, you're not. So the reason that Tesla made sense for me and what really drew me to it at the end was having to go to multiple dealerships, both Jeep and Kia, and finding a subpar experience through the ownership experience there because of poorly trained people that did not understand the vehicles. You should not have to be an expert in your vehicle to get the correct service in a timely manner, done properly, to have a proper diagnosis done. That shouldn't be the case. That is what drove me to a Tesla situation. Now, I have heard horror stories about not having a dealer, But some of the specific situations I was dealing with, I don't think you'll run into with Tesla, and that's part of what drove me. So, should you buy an EV? Probably as a secondary vehicle. We're at this point where for a lot of families, that makes sense. If you have a secondary vehicle that you want to make your EV, something that you don't road trip, that you can charge from home, it's super, super convenient. If you are regularly road tripping with it, then you have to make a whole bunch of decisions about what kind of patience you're going to have with charge networks, and you still need some patience even with a Tesla. You also have to make a decision about, does this dealer, not just the salespeople, but the service people, do they fully understand this vehicle? Do I have confidence that if something goes on, they will take care of me? If you've had a great experience with your deal with your gas car, that's great. Will it translate into an electric vehicle as well? So why did I buy a Model Y? I think it's among the leaders when you talk just about the vehicles. But in my area, the charge networks here in New Brunswick, they're not good enough for me to buy another EV and rely on it for a regular everyday vehicle. And the dealer networks at this point have not proven to be up to date enough for me to trust a very expensive vehicle with them and not to have long-term issues. So that's where I'm at. There's my honest review of my Kia Soul EV, why I bought the Tesla Model Y, and you can tell me what you think. Again, if you want to see my Tesla Model Y review, I'm not a huge Tesla fanboy. I think it's among the leaders, like I mentioned. I think it does a very good job, but it's not perfect. But this is what really drove me to buy that Model Y, which is now the #1 selling vehicle in the world at time of filming. Not just #1 selling EV, #1 selling vehicle. So there is why I currently drive a Tesla Model Y. Thanks everybody for watching.